everyone? It's Dave here and Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers. Been talking Minnesota Vikings an awfully long time. But there's something special about this season. What is it? Oh, we're going to have to wait and find out. But you get the feeling that it is. Now, part of it is we start out with a segment where the Vikings are in contract Nirvana. What does Nirvana mean? It means a state of oneness, a state of wellness. It's an absolute state of bliss. And your Minnesota Vikings have achieved that. Or at least we think so. We're going to talk about it. And then we're going to get into, speaking of state ofs, we're going to be talking a position review. This time we're looking at long-term position reviews of the pass catchers, the tight ends, and the wide receivers, and how we sit looking long-term in those two aspects. And, hey, it's not bad. I'll spoil it for you. And then we'll get to This Week in Vikings Land, where we have tidbits from across Vikings news to include some camp observations. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And here we are, and I want to thank everybody that's joined us today, from Doc Proto to North Fiesta, to Dylan, to Raymond, to T-Bass, Peter, and of course, the Drewster. And there's also Ant as well. Welcome to the show, fellas, and let's get it started. But first, Darren, how are things in the great white north? Is it white yet?
It isn't, but it was pretty chilly weekend. I'll just put it that way, and windy around here. Which, Dave, I feel like you were envious of me for a change, with how stinking humid it is in St. Louis, and hot and humid it is in St. Louis these days. You'd probably switch my 15 to 17 range Celsius, which we had this week, for whatever you guys were getting, which was, you were telling me was a 105 or some damn thing.
I'm curious how Drew moved from one sweat box out near Sacramento to another sweat box, this one caused by corn sweat.
Yeah, fascinating. Mm-hmm. Fascinating that could create humidity like that.
Yeah, and it does. It's crazy. All right. Now, with that, we name this Vikings contract Nirvana amid NFL holdouts, because, of course, we know there's controversy all across the NFL when it comes to contracts. Thankfully, none for the Vikings this season, and that's a good thing. So,
it is. What I wanted to talk about here was that you're getting into training camp now. First week of training camp with all the NFL teams has been they've done it, and that's always good news. There's optimism abounds with every team, no matter how good or bad they were last year. Everything's awesome. All the players and the coaches are pumped. So that's the really great part of training camp. You feel like football is close to happening again, but it also, this time of the year, is where some guys who are unhappy with their contract have a public forum to express their dissatisfaction, whether it's when they get interviewed by the media bringing it up at training camp, or they don't show up to training camp at all. And we have seen several cases so far this week, several key players of several teams, some of which the Vikings are going to be playing, who are not happy with their contract and are making that well known. Alex Anzalone, the linebacker for the Lions, disappointed with how contract negotiations have gone with him. Terry McLaurin with the Commies, not at training camp right now, very dissatisfied with his contract situation. You look at James Cook, Dalvin Cook's brother. He looked like he was going to not show up at training camp. He did, but he still made it clear he is not very happy with the way things have gone and why he doesn't have a new deal yet, and he believes that he deserves it. Trey Hendrickson not showing up at training camp for the Bengals. That's at a standstill. And so there's a number of these guys. Micah Parsons, another one. He's at camp, he's participating, but again, he's like shrugging his shoulders, very disappointed, wondering what's going on with Jerry Jones. Why don't I have a contract extension? I've earned it. So, this happens every year, but we're seeing, a lot of teams right now who have got players who are very dissatisfied with their contract situations and are grossing about it publicly. And that got me thinking of how since Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah joined the Vikings in 2022, we don't seem to have any of this stuff going on. Yes, there's players that have contract issues, but really they're not going public about it. They're not causing a stink. They might hold in a little bit in OTAs like Josh Metellus did. Now, maybe you could say Danielle Hunter was a little bit of a dissatisfied and with his contract situation in 2023. But, Hunter is a very quiet, private guy that I can tell. And other than wiping references to Viking stuff on his social media accounts, he never talked about it publicly and complained about his contract situation. You knew he didn't like it, but he didn't cause a big fuss about it. And even Josh Metellus, who got signed to that extension yesterday finally, and congrats to Josh Metellus for that. I think it's well deserved. But he held in, didn't participate in OTAs and minicamp, which isn't such a big deal because he was there. He just wasn't doing the drills. But when he got asked about it, his answer was always the same thing. I'm here to play football, man. I'll let my agent Drew Rosenhaus and the Vikings front office deal with that. They're handling things. I'm sure something's going to work out. And he even said that in training camp. He showed up. He participated the first day there until he got an ankle injury. And, he said, I'm here to play football. I didn't think it was right as a team leader to sit out and hold out, even though I believe that I need a new contract. So I think that, that situation with the Vikings is in stark contrast to what we're seeing with a lot of teams in the NFL with their key players. And I think, it got me thinking about what are the reasons for that. And I think there's two big reasons for it, Dave, and happy to hear other people's talk about this, and you as well, Dave. But I think the one reason why the, Vikings players in the past, in the Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah run of things, why they are not being very, if they've got a contract issue or they think they should be getting an extension, that they're not, upset about it and being publicly vocal about it. One is, I think that they've seen in the past that under Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and the Wilfs, that if they'll take care of you if you've proved that you've earned it. And we've seen that with Justin Jefferson. Jefferson got, last year got his extension just around the time where it could be an issue. Jefferson, again, was kind of the same issue, handled it the same way Josh Metellus did, I think, where he said, hey, I'll let the front office deal with that. It'll happen. I'm not worried about it. I'm not focused on that. And it did get done. Christian Darrisaw, they got that done a couple of years earlier than they maybe have had to. Van Ginkel this offseason, extending him. You've seen it in other cases too. And so when players feel that they're going to be taken care of if they've performed on the field and they've seen that there's a consistency and there's a history of the Vikings doing that, I think that they don't go publicly. They don't feel they have to do that. They don't feel they have to politic for a contract extension and put pressure on the front office to do those things, because they know the front office is going to do those things if they've earned it. And so I think that's a big part of why we're not seeing these publicly dissatisfied comments and actions by Vikings players. I think the other part of it is Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, I think he said it a few months ago in the offseason when he talked about free agency and how they're going to approach it. And he talked about how I don't lie to people. We do not lie to our players. That means, so I think players, through what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has done in his 4 years as roughly 4 years as general manager, is that if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah says something to you, you can take it at face value. And that, I think, goes a long way for players who want to be treated as human beings. They want to be treated with respect, and they want to know that if what somebody says behind closed doors, when they say that, they're going to do that and follow up on their actions. And the Vikings under Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, I think, have done that. You've seen that in the contracts they've handed out. They're not, and so that's a big part of it. If you're with the Bengals, do you think that your general manager, your front office is going to be 100% upfront with you? I don't think so. And so that is another thing. And Kevin O'Connell, I think, is the same way. You see with the way he interacts with players, Dave, you can tell that he cares about every player, not just what they're doing for him on the field, but he cares about them as people. That doesn't mean that he's not going to make tough decisions. That doesn't mean he's going to keep you as a starter if you're underperforming and he thinks you need to, thinks they need to upgrade, like switching out Ed Ingram for Dalton Reisner last year. We've seen him make tough decisions with rosters in the past, cutting guys he may have liked, not re-signing Cam Akers last offseason, that sort of thing, even though he loves them. And again, I think players really appreciate that when Kevin O'Connell, he cares about them, not just what they're going to do on the field, and also he's honest with them, and you know where you stand with Kevin O'Connell, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And again, I think players appreciate that, and you couple that with knowing you're going to get taken care of if you perform well, and also knowing where you stand with the Vikings, that they're not going to tell you one thing and then do another. That goes a long way with players. And I think that's why they're quite content to not, again, politic in public about contracts. They're unhappy. Why am I not getting extended? When am I going to get extended? All that bullshit that you're seeing with other teams. And I think that's important because the Vikings, it's hard enough to win in the NFL. It's hard enough to prepare for the NFL season with all that's going on, injuries, different things that happen. You don't need a distraction like Micah Parsons, one of your best players, having this dark cloud over his head about a contract extension, or Trey Hendrickson wanting to get traded and he hasn't been traded yet because the Bengals are too cheap to give him a contract extension. I think that's important. And the less distractions you have in the NFL, the better. And the Vikings have been able to, like you said, achieve contract nirvana, I think, partly, again, because of those two reasons, and there might be others, but I think those are two important factors why we aren't seeing the things in Minnesota that we're seeing with other teams. And I think it's important.
And there are quite a few other teams that are mired in this. You mentioned a few here with Micah Parsons, and then Jerry Jones sounding like he's losing it, which could very well be the case for Jerry. I mean, he's way up there in age.
Yeah.
On how he's talking about it. Dak Prescott has talked about how he wants him back. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
See.
Yeah. Anybody would want him back.
But we had, TJ Watt hold out until he got his extension. You talked about Alex Anzalone, which is, I think, absolutely brilliant. Continue to go for it, dude. Yes. Continue. Be disrespected. Yes. By all means, do that. There was Zach Brown of the Eagles. There's another one. And then you talked about Terry McLaurin. Terry reported to camp this morning. Now, he is still not playing. Was put on the PUP list, so he can't participate. But he told him, I'm just coming to camp so I don't get fined anymore. He's already missed, 4 days of camp? That's $200,000. So he'll just say, all right, my hamstring's tight.
Yes.
That's Anzalone's excuse. My hamstring's tight. I called it a wallet issue. The wallet isn't heavy enough, so I can't play. Right? But we'll see how it goes. But yes, you're right. Kwesi and Kevin have done a great job of keeping players that they feel they need, and that's a key point, happy. They've let players, like you mentioned, Danielle Hunter go. He went to, obviously, the next year to the Texans. Well, there's also been other ones, like you've had, let's see, we're losing my notes here. You have had Eric Kendricks when they first got here, and Zadarius Smith.
Smith, yeah.
And they figured, oh, you're too old. We're going to move on. So there are times when they do make the decision, no, we're going to move on. Or we're not going to pay you what you want.
Combine them.
Even though Josh Patel's got more money. Combine them. But think our previous two quarterbacks on that one.
Mm-hmm.
They were both offered low-end deals, and they said, no, okay, see ya, have a good time.
Yeah.
And they've got a plan. They're sticking to the plan. But when that player falls into that plan, they're getting the deals done, which I like.
That's right. And Josh Metellus being the latest example of that yesterday.
And Drew said he liked this slide.
Yeah, well,
I couldn't resist. When Darren came with contract Nirvana, there was only one thing on my mind. I got to include the Nirvana logo in there somewhere. And there it is.
Well done.
There are teams that are messed up. Cincinnati's one. God, Cincinnati's bad. They just got Shamar Stewart into the building, yesterday? I think it was. Signing their rookie. Gave him fully guaranteed like he was asking for the first time.
Mm-hmm. And Drew's asking us who's the next Viking due for a pay raise. And it's a good question because I think really Metellus is the last, key veteran I think that the Vikings have not, they had to take care of. I can't think of anybody like maybe Cashman gets an extension. That might be something you'd look at, but he's at an age where you have to wonder how long does that extension go? Because I think he's 29 now, and he's still under contract for another year or so. But, if he has another year this year, like he has last year, he might be someone the Vikings think, yeah, he's earned it. And we think we haven't seen any drop off in his level of play. We don't think there will be a drop off in the next couple of years. Let's extend him, get him locked up. I guess the other thing is that the whole salary cap is a myth thing, which it isn't a myth, but the Vikings have doled out so much cash, some of it funny money this offseason. How much room do they have to extend other guys at this point? That's something that neither of us know because we don't know what the Vikings cap situation, but it's hard for us to understand all the levers that Brzezinski can pull to fit guys under the cap. Moving around and all that sort of stuff. So maybe that's not a big issue. And it hasn't been for the Vikings the past couple of years. But we do know also that the salary cap situation they're in heading into 2022 and 2023 did impact their free agency plans. They just couldn't attack free agency like they did this offseason when they had a boatload of salary cap space. You could just see the difference in who they brought in and how much they brought them in for.
Yep. And I think Bulldog's right. Jordan Addison will be eligible for an extension as early as next spring. They don't have to. That'll be his fourth year, and they can sign him to a fifth year if he keeps his nose clean. And we'll get to that.
Yeah. And the question being, what do the Vikings do there? How do they feel about giving Addison an extension, considering the previous two off seasons where there's been issues with speeding and then driving under the influence? Nothing this off season, fortunately. But if there were, Addison would be looking at a suspension much longer than the 3 games he's likely going to get. Hopefully, we'll hear something here in the next week or two on that.
Yes, and then most likely will be on a Friday on a news dump from the NFL. So that's just the way they work. We'll find out. All right. Now on to theme 2. We're doing a position reviews, long-term views at certain positions. Today is the wide receivers and the tight ends, not necessarily in that order.
That's right. Actually, probably be reversed, but that's okay. If you haven't watched the show the past 3-4 weeks, hopefully you have, or for those that haven't, Dave and I started this segment where we're looking at each Vikings positional unit in the off season. This is old hat for some people, but I'll do the spiel anyway. In the every offseason, we do look at each position and kind of read the tea leaves and say who's going to go, who's not going to go, who the Vikings going to bring in free agency, who might they draft. That's all said, done with. We've been there, done that. But now that those positions are set and the 91-man roster is set for the Vikings, I felt it was useful to kind of look at contract situations, the age of players, and also their performance up to this point at each position to kind of get a feeling on how does each position look long-term for the Vikings. And long-term in the NFL isn't very long because there's so much turnover.
3 or 4 years, yeah.
3 or 4 years, basically. So that's what I mean by long-term here. I'm not talking about a decade from now. I'm talking about 3 or 4 years from now. So that's how we're attacking it and looking at it. And today, wide receivers and tight ends. Going to start with the tight ends, Dave, so you can put that graphic up there, baby. There it is. The master of graphics, Dave, has got that up there so you can see. Last week, we did the defensive line and talked about how long-term that unit does not look. There's a lot of uncertainty there. Not a lot of guys signed beyond a year or two, and the young guys we have are very unproven. We've got, I think, a different situation at tight end.
Guys are rookies for the most part, unless you take Giovanni Ricci.
Yeah, I think, but we're in a different space with the tight ends and wide receivers, at least with the key guys, and you got it on there because you're looking at TJ Hawkinson and Josh Oliver, 28 years old. Both of them not going to be free agents until after the 2027 season. They're in their prime. TJ Hawkinson's one of the best pass catching tight ends in the NFL. Josh Oliver's one of the best run blocking tight ends in the NFL. And also he can catch the ball too when you throw it to him. They're in there and the Vikings have got them locked up for this season and 3 seasons. So, that is pretty good because they're going to play the vast majority of the snaps at tight end for the Vikings, and we've got them under team control for 3 years. To me, that's long-term bliss at the tight end position. And so we're looking really good there with those two guys, barring them having serious injuries and missing a significant amount of time in any of those years, which could happen. But as far as performance-wise and contract-wise and age-wise, everything's lining up well at tight end for the Vikings with their 2 main guys. Now, the number 3 tight end, the number 3 tight end does not play a lot on most NFL teams. They haven't played a lot with the Vikings either. But that depth there is made up of more younger, unproven guys and Giovanni Ricci, who is a camp body, I believe, and is not going to make the team anyway, or be on the practice squad for that matter. But you got, I think, 3 young guys, mainly 2 young guys, I think, who are vying for that number 3 tight end spot, who will play some snaps each game for the Vikings, but maybe it'll be 5, maybe it'll be 10. They're Gavin Bartholomew. They're the 6th round draftee from Pittsburgh. You've got Ben Yurosek, who's the other guy, I think, who's going to be battling with Bartholomew, if he can get healthy, that is, Bartholomew, I mean, that are going to be battling for the number 3 tight end. And then the third guy is a bit more of a long shot because he can't really block, is, Bryson Nesbitt from North Carolina. But if you look at those guys, the oldest guy is Yurosek at 23. Bartholomew's under team control until, after the 2028 season. The other guys, Yurosek and Nesbitt, they are under team control until 2027. And even at that point, they'd be restricted free agents. So the Vikings could match, again, any offer that they received, and if they so choose. So again, you've got guys, the Vikings have team control over these guys, again, for 3 or more seasons. And if any one of those guys develops into a viable number 3 guy, one of them is going to be on the roster this year and make the team. We don't know who yet. And 1 or 2 of those other guys I'm not counting Ricci in here because I just said I think he's a camp body who's not going to make the team. But, Nesbitt or Urasic or Bartholomew, two of those three are going to, I think, at least be retained on the practice squad, in all case, these are three young guys, very young, that they're going to get a chance to develop and, develop at the NFL level without having to play really any offensive snaps, earn their chops, earn their keeps, and perhaps in 2026 or 2027, they ascend to a little bit more prominent role with the Vikings at the tight end position. But that, tight end wise, I feel when you got Hawk and Oliver locked up like you do for 3 seasons, and you got 3 young guys who, again, you can develop and take your time with, I think the tight end position long term looks pretty solid to me for the Vikings.
I agree. And yes, Bartholomew is hurt. He supposedly has a back issue, if I remember correctly. He's not the one with the foot.
It is the back issue.
It's a back issue. And he's losing ground to Ben Urasek because of it. You got to be healthy. That's one of the deals. Now, these young guys need developed. So I've always said the old saying is you draft a tight end for your next team, for their next team. It's going to take a while, and which is interesting because Noah Fant's out there now. Noah Fant wants to be a tight end, at least a tight end 2 somewhere, and we're not going to pay him what he wants. He's going to have to. The only way we get Noah Fant is if he comes out of here out of desperation and wants to do a 1-year vet minimum deal and prove it type deal. But that's it. And he's older anyways. So he was teammate of T.J. Hawkinson back at Iowa. So it is for the folks that are asking about, well, Noah Fant is out there. No, it's not going to happen unless he's way desperate. And I don't think that is, I don't think anybody's ever going to get to that point. I don't think it's going to happen.
It would only be like what we don't want to happen is either particularly Hawkinson gets hurt and is out for a number of games. Then, maybe you bring in Noah Fant because he's a pass catching tight end and a veteran. But the Vikings are going to bring him in to be the number 3 guy, and Fant isn't going to come here to be the number 3 guy, like you said.
No, he's going to have to be rejected as the number 2 guy across the board out of 32 teams before he even considers. All right, I'll be a number 3 guy.
Yeah,
sort of deal.
I don't think he's at that stage in his career, in his mind, anyway.
Right. So that brings us to the wide receivers, which we have quite a few.
You always do. You need a lot of wide receivers. And again, this is an area where I think things are looking, or long-term looking pretty good. It's always going to look good when you have the best wide receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson, who's locked up again until I think he won't be a free agent until 2029.
Hopefully until he retires.
Yes.
With all the NFL passing or wide receiver records in his pocket. Yes.
Yeah. He just turned 26, so he's well within his prime, and we've got him locked up for the next 4 or 5 seasons, right? So, that's a great place to start. His running mate, Jordan Addison, is only 23 years old, and he's under contract until after the 2020 season. He's under contract up until the 2027 season. Again, this season and 2 more, you've got him potentially. That's a very good place to be. And the Vikings are going to have got a front row seat into deciding in between that, likely next year, where how does he fit into their financial situation? Is he somebody that they want to extend long term so that he and Justin Jefferson can be paired together up until 2029 and maybe even beyond that? Again, I think there's a very good situation where you got Jefferson and Addison under contract for at least 3 years each, this year and 2 more. That's a great place to start. And then beyond that, the Vikings have got the rookie Ty Felton. They picked him in the 3rd round. And he just turned 22. He's under team control until 2029. Now, we don't expect him to have a big role this year, but that could change if and when Addison gets suspended. So far, Drew was mentioning how he's shredded in training camp so far. What I've read about Felton is that he has not looked out of place. He's performed pretty solidly. We know that he's very fast. We know that he had great yards after catch ability. We know he's coming at college. We know he's coming off a monster season at Maryland with nobody throwing to him. There's promise with Ty Felton. No guarantees, but again, he's going to potentially have a larger role in the offense than we would have thought. If Addison gets suspended, there's talk that he's still a possibility to be your wide receiver number 3 if Addison is suspended for the first 3 games. I think that would be I'd be a bit surprised if that happens, but if it does happen, that's great because it means Felton does have promise. He's really showing that he was worth picking in the 3rd round when we did. And he's a guy that can develop into your number 3 wide receiver, number 2 receiver down the road. So you got those 3 guys here for a long time. I feel very good about that. Now, beyond that, our current number 3 guy, the guy you got pictured here, Jalen Naylor, he's only under contract this season. I don't expect him to be retained by the Vikings. I think Naylor in particular is going to want more money and more opportunities somewhere else. And, I like Naylor as a player, but the most catches he's had was last year. I think he had 28 catches or something like that. So, if the Vikings can afford to lose a Jalen Naylor, I think, particularly if Felton proves to be as good as some people believe he's going to be. We're going to find out about that. Another guy.
Naylor played 68% of the snaps last year.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive snaps. 6 touchdowns. Not bad.
Not bad. I think that he's a guy that, he might have been a bit underused, but we have to consider who else Sam Darnold had to throw the football to, and it was pretty good options, as we know. Rondale Moore is a guy. He's only signed again for this season, but he seems to have looks like he's fully recovered from his knee injury. Again, he's going to have an opportunity if Addison is not playing the first 3 games to carve out a potentially substantial role in the Vikings offense, not just for those 3 games, but beyond. And he's a guy that the Vikings, because of his unique skill set, the type of player that he is, the type of things you can do with him that the Vikings can't do with their other wide receivers, where, use him as a gadget guy, reverses, jet sweeps, maybe even in the backfield a little bit, wide receiver screens, where he gets lost, his 5'7" height gets lost among some big trees and big offensive linemen. He could be a guy that the Vikings could look to extend depending on how he does this year, because I think even if he does well, his role is going to be somewhat limited. And I think he'll be fairly affordable to retain if he wants to come back here and the Vikings want to come back here. So there's a possibility there. Now, everybody else on that list, Dave, you got your Lucky Jacksons, you got your Thayer Thomases, you got your Miles Prices, like Tim Jones. Yeah. Jones is a 1-year guy. These are all bottom of the guy rosters. They're your number 5, number 6, number 7 practice squad.
And then you get to Bolden, Fleming, Lewis, and Price.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard of Bolden because fans are in love with him. But Fleming, Lewis, Price, fans have the tendency of falling in love with young players, which is fine. They can do that. But you got to look at this list. There's 13 wide receivers on that list. Maximum on the active roster, they're going to keep 6, maybe 5.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with everybody else? They're all not going to make the practice squad.
They're not. And these are all guys that, in many cases, most of them are undrafted rookie free agents that the Vikings have signed in previous 2 seasons, last season, and now this season. And the Vikings can control them up until, as you see there, 2027 in most cases. But these are guys, like you said, a few of them will make the practice squad. Maybe one of those guys will be your Tristan Jackson version of Tristan Jackson this year, your number 6 wide receiver who looks great in preseason, but doesn't actually dress on game day. These are all guys that are easily replaceable. And they're not long-term guys unless they prove otherwise. But still, I think overall, you look at the tight ends, Hawkinson and Oliver, you look at the wide receivers with Jefferson and Addison in particular, and the Felton, if that pick pans out, I think, again, long term, that the ages of those guys, how long they're locked up for contract wise, and how they performed as Vikings in the time they've been Vikings, I think we're looking pretty solid at those two positions long term, which is 3 or 4 years, compared to some of the other positions we've looked at, particularly defensive line.
Which is, yep. I think both these positions are looking sweet. Now, hopefully we can develop some tight ends, and hopefully we can take some of these lower numbered position wide receivers and make special teams of them. It sounds like, who was it? Just posted that they're talking about, it was Peter, special teams. Now, Tim Jones is considered a special teams ace on his previous team. You have Thayer Thomas, who's known to do punt returns. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, if we could find somebody that could specialize and be good at punt returns, they're going to make the squad. And
that's supposed to be Silas Bolden.
And it's supposed to be Silas.
We haven't heard much about him so far in camp, but I haven't heard much of them talking about punt returns either. I don't know how much they've worked on.
I think it was just yesterday. It was the first time we got reports on the kickers, you know, whether it be Will the Thrill or both punters. Mm-hmm. And it was always heavy winds, and, Will the Thrill was 4 for 5. We saw the punters punting, but we didn't do anything. I even saw a clip of them. Okay. We'll find out. We'll get the special teams coach on this week, and we'll get there.
Yeah, and the thing about Drew mentioning Rondé Moore on punt return is he did do it a bit.
Relations, Drew?
Yeah, he did do it a bit in his rookie season, but not a ton. And he did do it in Purdue a bit too. But he hasn't had a lot of experience doing that lately, and so I'm sure that he'll be in the mix. There, we'll just have to see how comfortable he looks doing that, or what we're hearing. We
that's
know
the way
that
to make the squad and stick to a squad, especially with his diminutive size.
Mm-hmm. So there, but yeah, I think we feel pretty good again about the long-term outlook of both tight ends and wide receivers for the Vikings. Yeah, like your bottom of the depth chart is guys that there's some unknowns there, but I think that's the case most of the time for most teams. Your bottom of the roster guys, your number 3 tight end, number 4 tight end, your number 5 and number 6 wide receiver are usually not signed for a long time. And, whether they're going to be on the club beyond this season or even on the club this season is often a question mark.
Yeah, because you can find other guys that can do their jobs. That's
right. Yep.
Their talent level isn't as high as a Justin Jefferson or even a Jordan Addison. So
Leo Lewis, he was only slightly bigger than Rondale Moore. Rondale's listed at 5'7". I think Leo was 5'8", but Rondale is more thickly built.
That's a tall 5'7".
Yeah.
Now, that was theme 2. What comes after theme 2?
Theme 3. If my memory.
I believe it is. This week in Vikings land.
Yeah, this one's pretty much all going to be about training camp, baby, which, of course, makes sense because training camp started, what was it, a Tuesday or whatever? Like they hit the field. Mm-hmm. We're over the first week of training camp. And so finally, real stuff to talk about. And, who's doing well, who isn't, all that sort of stuff. But the first thing that came out of training camp is not good news, of course, is that the slight hamstring strain that Justin Jefferson suffered on Thursday.
And this one is a real deal, not a wallet-related one.
Yes, indeed. So now it's not the same hamstring that he had the issues with in 2023, but it's still not good news. And likely the Vikings said that Kevin O'Connell said they'll reevaluate him this week, but I suspect it'll be a while before you see Justin Jefferson participating in training camp. He'll be there on the sidelines, but he's not going to be doing much. And that's key, because you got to be very careful with this. You don't want Jefferson aggravating that hamstring and not being available game one against the Bears at Soldier Field. You want Justin Jefferson playing in that game and 100%, and his hammies 100%. And Kevin O'Connell also, when he spoke, I believe it was on Friday, addressed the media about this, saying that because initially Jefferson left the field because he felt tightness in his legs, and then they checked it out and found it was a slight hamstring strain. And O'Connell said, listen, newsflash, Justin Jefferson wasn't going to play in preseason, which I don't think
he may have done it in the joint Patriots practice, but that was it.
Well, like the preseason games though, but right. It does. The question is, how long is Justin Jefferson going to be out? You talked about those joint practices. I think they're August 13th and 14th against the Patriots. Is he going to be back in time for that? Because that's pretty much the most significant, I'd say the most significant set of practices that the Vikings are going to do through all training camp, because they're going up against another team who are sending out their best against your best, and it's as close to as you can get to real football. It'd be good if Justin Jefferson could partake in that. I don't feel confident that he will, because I think the Vikings are going to be, and they should be, very, very, very cautious with their meal ticket on this one.
And they want him healthy for Chicago.
They do, and he's got to be healthy for Chicago. And so, that is the right course of action to take. But it does cut into the all-important rapport and chemistry and synergy that he's been trying to work with, I think, with J.J. McCarthy this offseason. Now, the good news on this is that Justin Jefferson has participated fully in all the OTAs and the mini camp. He's been spending quality time with J.J. McCarthy, so they have been working on this. And
there was a time where J.J. gathered them all, and they were catching passes and all that. Yes.
So, but still, like the whole thing about the quarterback knowing when exactly your wide receiver is going to break and where he likes the ball and where you can throw it to him, and trusting him, that all takes time, a lot of reps, a lot of throws. And so now you're not going to get that with J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. Kevin O'Connell said he does not expect that to be an issue. He's not worried about it because of the time they've already spent doing that stuff. And so Kevin O'Connell knows a hell of a lot more about football than I do, so I'll take him at his word. But something to monitor when it's go time. Like I feel like if we see Justin Jefferson on the field again in training camp, it might be very minimal. I don't know if we are going to see him again, but he's got to be ready for game one. That's something to monitor when the regular season starts. How do McCarthy and Jefferson jive? Are they in sync? We'll see. And we'll see if this had any impact at all. I guess we won't really be able to say definitively if it did or it didn't. We'll just have our opinions.
JJ only needs to be in the right zip code for Jets to catch the ball. And he's already there.
Yes. You're probably 100% correct on that, Dave. But I'm a worrier.
Yes, you are.
Like in the famous Will Ferrell, Harry Carey skit, that's why they call me Whiskers from Saturday Night Live. I'm a worrier. But anyway, so that's that. Justin Jefferson with a slight hamstring strain, not a great thing. The second thing that happened during training camp, it wasn't a training camp activity, was we already talked about it. Josh Metellus signs the extension, 3 years. Was it 35, 36 million,
36 up to 42,
25 million guaranteed. We'll have to check over the cap over the next couple of weeks to kind of see how that contract is structured a little bit more, to see how much of that is fully guaranteed. But
I think it's right versus the 25 guaranteed and how much is fully. And then when does it hit? How are they working it around next year's $60 million deficit?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But if you're Josh Metellus, you're considering his salary cap hit this season was going to be just about $3.7 million. So Josh Metellus has to be a pretty happy boy today with the big raise that he got with this extension, and that he's clearly happy, and also happy that he's remaining in Minnesota. And I'm happy too, because again, he earned it. He's a unique player. He's who has a unique role on this defense, and excuse me. And I think it's a well-deserved contract extension. And once again, didn't raise a fuss about it the whole offseason, and the Vikings got it done once again. So, and like we said earlier, really one of the last key veterans the Vikings had to deal with right now with a contract issue, and they got it done. So great job, Vikings front office, and congratulations to Josh Metellus for getting that. And now he's good to go. And we'll see how Brian Flores uses him in the defense with the other new toys that he's acquired this offseason.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interesting. Now, this image was taken when he was a rookie. And I questioned, why did we draft him? And Drew was like, oh, come on, he's from Michigan. Of course he's going to be great. And this was 2020. And he went up there and he's just going to be a kick returner, blah, blah, blah. And he goes through training camp and gets cut. He is the epitome of what determination and hard work can produce. Does he come from a good football lineage? Obviously in Michigan, yes. But he stuck to it. And this is, Kwesi talked about it on the press conference when they announced it, that, hey, this is not your first rounder that's, going to make tons of money all the time. This is a guy that's earned it. And that's one of the reasons they gave it to him. And I found it interesting that it was higher than Cam Bynum's. It took a while to figure out because of all the different positions.
Yeah.
But I do love that he is on the team. And he said yesterday in his own press conference that he loves it in Minnesota, which I know tickles Drew to death.
It would. And yeah, it's been quite the rise for him. Like you said, Dave, a 6th rounder picked in 2020, one of the last cuts of the roster that training camp, didn't make the team, put on the practice squad, and now he's one of the key players on one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's been
he earned his captainship. And he'll be that way probably for, throughout the remainder of his career. So I think it's wonderful. And as of camp notes, he's the starter next to Hitman.
Yeah.
Theo Jackson comes in when they bring in a third one and they move him down. Sort of like with Byron Murphy when they bring in the third quarterback. But we'll get there.
Yeah. Other things from training camp, and of course, I've not been at training camp. I've not seen anything in not been there to see things personally. I would guess that just about everybody here on the chat has not been there either. But if you have, I am envious as hell that you have been able to take in at least one Vikings training camp practice or more. Few other significant things for me based on what I've read from the media that cover the Vikings and are at these practices. This is where we are getting the information on how things are going. The most important thing, JJ McCarthy, from all I've read, has looked very solid. He had one kind of so-so day, I think it was on Thursday, but even that didn't sound that bad. And this is great news. It also does not surprise me one bit. Like I said last week, this is the way he was last year, folks. He looked solid. He looked in control as a rookie. 1 year of experience, getting used to how things are in the NFL. He settled in Minnesota. He should be used to the speed of the play, at least in practices. So I expected him to perform like he's performed so far. And it is good that he is, because like I said, the only thing I'll be concerned about is this: I hear multiple days where McCarthy is sucking it hard, and we have not heard any of that so far. And I don't think we are going to.
And he supposedly shined yesterday when they were 11 on 11s. And for the folks that keep sending me clips about, oh no, JJ threw 6 interceptions. Those are bullshit clips. They're clips taken from last year, and they're composites of one interception or another interception over a dozen so practices. They are BS. You've always got to evaluate where you're getting your information from. JJ's having a great camp. Yes, he's thrown some interceptions. Most of them have been deflections off of wide receivers' hands, and it's not a bad thing to throw an interception. He's learning, how to throw it. I listen to the Steelers guys a lot because I work with them, and they're always, Aaron Rodgers threw an interception. Oh, no, panic. Oh, no, why we shouldn't panic. All this, and we've been through it with Aaron Rodgers when he was over at Cheeseland. He's been doing great from what we're reading, and it's not just from Collar or from Judd or from the national beat writers or the national local ones like Chip Scoggins.
Breer.
Yeah,
Breer.
I mean,
Breer was there first day.
There's reasons to be excited about this season.
And yeah, number 9 is one of the big reasons. So that's good news. Not so good news has been that the presumptive backup to McCarthy, Sam Howell, has looked brutal according to everything that we've read so far. Hardly having trouble completing passes, holding on to the ball too long, getting sacked, virtually is not the right word, but,
getting tagged,
throwing some interceptions. It's gotten to the point where I see Collar has been mentioned a few times in the chat, not favorably, where, Collar talked about how, this has to turn around soon for Howell, or the Vikings might do something about it, which makes me wonder about that, because, would the Vikings pull the trigger this early? If you look at 2022, when Kellen Mond and Sean Mannion, from my memory, training camp did not look much better for them than it did for Sam Howell right now. And in the preseason, they were very ineffective, actually played very poorly consistently. But the Vikings let that ride out until the end of training camp, until final cuts. And then they felt they'd seen enough. And then they made the trade for Nick Mullins and said bye-bye to Kellen Mond and Sean Mannion. I think the same thing is going to happen here. One reason being that I don't think other NFL teams really are comfortable trading away anybody from their quarterback depth yet at this point in training camp. And it's hard to pick up a free agent for the Vikings because look what's out there. Carson Wentz is available. If they wanted him, they would have signed him already. Tyler Huntley is another name, but they don't have him. So there isn't a lot out there free agency that you could pick up off the street and really feel that you might be getting an upgrade. Now, Jaren Hall was released by the Seahawks in late April. Would the Vikings, if they don't like what they see from Rippon and Sam Howell, would they consider bringing Hall in to add to their quarterback room of their former draft pick, a guy that Kevin O'Connell thought highly of, back in 2023? I don't know, but keep an eye out for Jaren Hall as being a late addition to the team. If the quarterback situation, the Vikings aren't happy with Brosmer, Rippon, or Howell, even though they released Hall last year to bring in Rippon. But just something, because again, Kevin O'Connell was obviously on board with drafting Jaren Hall when he did back then, and he might feel that, hey, it's time to bring him back into the fold and get him under the Kevin O'Connell quarterback school again.
And no rookie quarterback is going to be a QB2. There's going to be a veteran of some sort back there, period.
It's certainly not going to be Brosmer, who's going to be your quarterback number 2.
Undrafted free agent. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, hey, unless in preseason he absolutely kills it, a la like Russell Wilson in 2012, but the chances of that happening are about as good as the chances of me doing that. if you put me under center, I think. So that's that. Kind of a few other notable things from training camp from what I read is Isaiah Rodgers, the free agent cornerback, seems to be balling out and playing really, really well so far. And that is, I think, huge for this cornerback room because, said it before many times, Byron Murphy Jr., I know what we're going to get from him. But all these other guys, not really sure. So the fact that Rodgers is really standing out, making plays on the ball, deflecting passes, looking really, really strong, and he's slated to be the guy playing opposite of Byron Murphy Jr., very, very encouraging to read that. The other thing that we're hearing is that Jeff Okudah been running the in the number 3, the nickel or the Shaq Griffin role
CB3.
in this game. Yeah.
Because when they go to the nickel formation, Murphy slides into the nickel and he plays opposite outside.
Yeah, and he has been running that in the first team instead of Mekhi Blackman, which surprises me a little, but we did hear in offseason that the Vikings seem to be pretty high on Okudah and the ability of a guy who's been a big draft bust, somehow getting it in Minnesota. But, long ways to go here, Dave, on that, as we all know. And also as your football philosophy is that until they put the pads on, none of this is worth shit.
That's right. They gotta be hitting.
So there's that, but and also we got to remember in 2022 when Andrew Booth Jr. was like early on in camp, he was like a standout, looked like he was going to be a great player for the Vikings. Well, how long did that last? Those first 2 weeks of training camp were the highlights of Andrew Booth Jr.'s Vikings career and his NFL career at this point. So Okudah is your number 3 cornerback yet? Maybe, but stay tuned on that one because we do have some other options like Mekhi Blackman, like Dwight McLaughlin, like maybe that Vaughn kid from Utah, who I think you've got a picture of right there.
Yeah, Samaya Vaughn. It's cool. And why I say get the pads on, one, because I love watching my big round bellies actually hit. Players literally run different when they're in their pads than when they do when they're in shorts and T-shirts. There's nothing binding there. You don't have shoulder pads, even though they've gotten smaller over the years, right? And, thigh pads and the whole works that make a player feel different, run different, whatever. You've got to see how they move fully equipped up before you make any final decisions. And that's why they've had this ramp up period, which is designated by the CBA. They've gone through that. And then Monday, they put on the pads and we hear pow, pow, pat, bang, bang. Oh, can't wait.
Dave is salivating for that for Monday, which isn't very far away. And a couple other things about training camp as far as positives, I guess, is one of the positives is the guy who you see in the back of him right now is Rondale Moore. Again, looks like he is, and I've seen a few videos shown of him. You talk about somebody who looks fast and quick. That is Rondale Moore. Doesn't look like he has any effects of his bad knee injury last year. And again, he's got skill set that the Vikings don't. The rest of the wide receivers don't really have that shifty gadget guy. And I think that he's got a shot. There was some questions if his knee wasn't right, would he even make the roster? It sounded like he's looked really solid so far. Looked like the Rondale Moore who was a rookie. His first year had a really strong rookie season with the Arizona Cardinals. If you're getting that kind of Rondale Moore,
explosive and fast.
Then that is an asset that Kevin O'Connell can make use of, and that guy's making the team, and he might be a real significant contributor doing things like Percy Harvin used to do, who has been mentioned in the chat, maybe playing a little bit of a David Palmer role, another guy that people have mentioned in the chat. Maybe he's your punt returner too. So, really, really good to hear that. Good to hear and see that he looks 100% with the knee.
Mm-hmm. And by mentioned in the chat, that means our viewers are quite knowledgeable, which is great, and we love it.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it at all. Those are the things that have stood out to me. There's going to be other people who'll have other comments. Another thing that comes to mind is Levi Drake Rodriguez is working a lot with the twos on the defensive line. There's a question: would he make the team? Would Taki Taimani make the team? Who's going to make the team? But right now, again, a long ways to go. When the pads come on, we'll find out more about the defensive line and the offensive line, but in particular. But Drake Rodriguez looks like right now he could be enrolled for more significant, could make the team, and also not only make the team, but actually be dressed on Sundays and playing on Sundays, which didn't happen last year.
Yep, and once pads come on, we're going to see hitting against each other. But then let's see it hitting against the Patriots when we play them, or if we get any other time when we team-on-team practice. We'll see.
Yeah, and last year's joint practice with the Browns, I think, was pretty illuminating overall, particularly for Darnold, who struggled at times. But that was a very good defense that the Vikings offense was going against in joint practices. So the fact that wasn't, I think, important for Darnold and the offense to get those reps against the Browns defense last year and get them ready for the regular season. Patriots defense, we're not quite sure what they're going to have this year or offensively either. They've signed a bunch of people. They spent a bunch of money. There seems to be some assumption that because Mike Vrabel is the head coach that they're going to be so much better than last year. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But
Drake
still,
May goes into season 2 for him. He's a talented quarterback. He should do fine if he can keep his hands dry off of somebody's butt.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, but again, he's not throwing to, the best of wide receivers either. Anyway, so first week of training camp, we're looking forward to much, much more news and nuggets to see who's rising, who's falling, who's meeting expectations, who isn't, what the defenses and offenses are looking like, and what players are being put in what roles. Still a lot of questions to answer at this point, and still lots of time to get some, data to help form some answers to those questions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now we got one more topic to discuss.
Yeah, it's a bit worrisome. Is that Friday? Or was it yesterday? Yeah, Friday. Word came out. ESPN came out that you got roughly 100 NFL players from over half of the NFL teams are looking at either big fines and possible suspensions for selling their allotment of Super Bowl tickets above face value. No indication yet of what teams those players are from, but 100 players is a lot of players, Dave. Half the NFL teams is a lot of those teams. And I'm really hoping that we have no Vikings who did that stupid stuff. Because like I was saying with the contract situation, you don't want distractions. Football is hard enough to play and do well. And we've already got staring down one suspension with Jordan Addison for 3 games. Do not need another key Viking who might get suspended for 1 or 2 or however many games the NFL is going to mete out here on top of Addison heading into the season. So kind of nervous about this day. Like I said, I'm a worrier, but you hope that team culture that Kevin O'Connell has been building helps with players making wise choices. Because you got to feel that even though these guys are making a lot of money, I don't know how many Super Bowl tickets each guys get, but the bottom of the roster's guys who are making 750,000, whatever. If the opportunity was there to make 15 or 20 grand or more by selling a few tickets.
Now I clipped this tweet from David Ward, and he's probably joking, mind you. I think it's funny, because he picked Amon-Ra St. Brown. But but Super Bowl tickets, they tend to go up there in price, and they are very expensive. And I could see why players or coaches or staff or whoever wants to sell them to make an extra buck that can't make the game themselves. So,
well,
but
yeah,
100+ players on half the teams. Let it be the teams we play.
yes.
To start off the season.
And I guess none of these players had heard of Mike Tice because, in 2005, old Mikey got fined $100,000 for selling some of his allotment of Super Bowl tickets above face value. He sold them to a ticket broker at the time. It was quite a big scandal, one of a few that Mike Tice was involved in as head coach with the Vikings. But history repeats itself in the NFL.
Hopefully the Vikings aren't on that list of 100 players and half the teams because of Mike Tice.
Yeah. Because I'm sure that the Wilfs in particular wouldn't be very pleased with seeing a repeat of that incident.
Well, I'm hoping that it's during the whole off-season in briefings, all this stuff of when they start going through the slides of what not to do.
Yeah.
Don't go 120 down I-94. Don't do this. Don't go on a boat trip and hire hookers from out of state. Don't do that. Don't do this. And don't be like Mike Tyson, sell your Super Bowl tickets.
Nope. And that year that he sold them, I don't know how much he made, but because I don't think that ever got public. But what was public was that season his salary was $750,000 to be the head coach of the Vikings, and I think and so
I think he was probably the lowest paid head coach in the league.
Exactly. Like even in 2005, that's pretty low, considering that Kevin O'Connell is making what 13 or 14 million a year right now. Mm-hmm. With his new extension,
or up to 15 or something like that. Yeah.
So anyway, that's a trip down memory lane we didn't really want to take, and hopefully we won't have a repeat of that. But let's look out for when this the NFL starts handing out this discipline to the players who did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mike was not stupid, Anthony. Sorry, he was a very good coach.
He was, and I think our friend Ted Glover says this a lot, where he did. I think he did a pretty good job with the resources that he had at the time.
And he was hamstrung because of said resources.
Yes. I don't think if people remember, but that season, 2005 particular, remember when Steve Loney was the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator because Red McCombs wouldn't pay.
He had like 5 or 6 coaches on his staff. And that was it.
Yeah. So, those days are long gone, thankfully. But Tice didn't have a lot to work with on the field other than Randy Moss and Culpepper when he was head coach, and not a lot off the field either. Like the rotting long ship at the at their headquarters in Winter Park and all that sort of
Winter
stuff.
Park, just the roof leaking, no refrigerator, no air conditioning. It was miserable.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's saved for a history segment.
A Vikings vault sometime. Yes.
Well, brother, do you have any last words you want to say before the pads come on tomorrow?
Well, we do have to give a shout out, Dave. This isn't happening this week, but next weekend is the Hall of Fame inductions, I believe. And one Jared Allen will be getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So wanted to give a shout out for that. You should probably check out as best you can to find out when this is going to be televised and when you can catch Jared Allen as his induction speech. And we'll probably have more to say about that next week after we hear what he has to say about being inducted into the Hall of Fame. But once again, congrats to Jared Allen. Well-deserved. One of the funnest guys to ever watch play who put on a Vikings uniform. Just a tremendous, tremendous player while he was there with us.
Yes, he was. And he was. I can't wait till that segment. And I teased you or asked a question about it. Should we do it this week or next? It's going to be fun. And Jared Allen more than deserves it, in my opinion.
I'm just so glad that he did get in, because you just hate it year after year when these guys who seem like obvious selections don't get in, because every year there's a new crop who are like fresher in the minds of voters than even Jared Allen is, and then you kind of worry about them getting overlooked because the new shiny new shiny candidates are there. But it didn't happen with Allen. He did get in after, I think, what was it, a 4 or 5?
It's been too long, but yes,
it was
he hadn't gone to senior status yet. Put it that way.
Yeah. So,
well,
that's it. That's all.
And I encourage everybody that can make it to training camp this week, make it to training camp. It's fun to watch. And like I said, they're putting on pads, and you're going to hear the popping and the banging and the cracks. And it's just going to be wonderful. And for those that don't, catch Tyler on Monday with the Real Forno Show. And make sure you watch the feed, because it may not go exactly at 6:05 like normal, because he's going to be there tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. And then whatever else happens this week, we'll have another Who Will Be King, and then followed by Tyler on Thursday, and then back at us on the weekend. But we have a football game on Thursday, which will be cool. And, of course, the Hall of Fame induction on Saturday. With that, buddy, what do we say?
We say SKOL Vikings, baby, and thanks for watching.
SKOL Vikings.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!